among many other literary accomplishments. Just this last year, she finished a memoir, but her memoirs ever finished, really, before we see them in the bookstore. That was her first book-length project, but she has many more in front of her. For this coming fall, she will begin an MFA program in a yet-to-be-chosen location in the Southwest. I'm very pleased to welcome her back to this stage where she and I performed about a decade ago. Ladies and gentlemen, Melanie Madden. Melanie.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Church of Poetry. I couldn't believe it when I walked in here tonight and I saw this amazing art, which I just thought, I feel really, really welcome. It's really fantastic. And I'm really excited that Brian is here. Yours was the first poetry reading that I came to after my return to Davis, and that was the first open mic that I read at, and it's where I got really bitten by sort of a bug that made me want to read more and more. So I'm very excited to be here. And so many of you came to see me, so thank you so much. Okay. And also, many, many thanks to Ariel. That was so amazing. She's my new favorite. Yesterday when we were on Dr. Radio's, Dr. Andy's. Oh, okay, now you know I'm nervous. Let me try slowing down. Yesterday on Dr. Andy's radio show, Ariel read a poem, and she said that, and I'm paraphrasing here, I hope I get it at least close to right, that books are the blood of the world, and people are its heart. And that was me. So I'm going to read a couple poems and also some prose, because that is where I'm most comfortable. So. But for you people, some poetry. The first piece is called Why I Write. Because I have a father and I have a son, or rather, I have no father and I have no son, which is to say, I had a father and I had a son. And in case that all seems very mysterious, all of the rest of the pieces that I read will kind of explain, I think. This is a chapter from the memoir, which is called 33. And this is really an excerpt. It's actually a much longer piece, but, well, not that much longer, but these are the good parts. It's called Umbilical. Before my son was born, I called him Iggy. I was threatening to saddle him with one of those cumbersome arcane saints' names in tribute to the Jesuits who'd founded such illustrious colleges as the one I would be attending just 4 months after his birth. I favored Aloysius since I had chosen Gonzaga narrowly over Loyola Marymount, but I thought Ignatius would be a fine choice too. Iggy, Mom exclaimed brightly when I brought it up, and until he came to term, actually 2 weeks early, he was in a hurry. That's what we called him. Iggy was my all-purpose excuse. Mom, Iggy's hungry. When is dinner? Mom, Iggy's kicking me. Mom, I don't think I should go to school today. Iggy kept me awake all night. Often with, they weren't nightmares exactly, but bizarre dreams. Vivid. In between school, homework, prepping for the SAT and AP exams, doctor's appointments, routine labs, and visits with my case manager at the adoption agency, I worked on my list of preferred names for the boy-to-be I was growing inside me. Quentin was at the top. Pulp Fiction had come out the year earlier, and I was an avid Tarantino fan. All my friends were. Ignatius and Aloysius were also on the list, of course. And Dominic, after the boy from church who I desperately loved in the 9th grade, even though he was too old for me. He'd graduated the year before I got to high school and had an infuriating habit of clapping me on the shoulder and calling me kid. Mom was critical of my list. You know Debbie and Jill aren't going to like any of these names, she told me. They're going to name him John or Josh or Joe Jr. I was horrified by the notion. What a litany of pedestrian names. At my support group for pregnant teens and new mothers at school, at least 3 had baby Joshes at home. But it wasn't going to be up to me. Along with custody, I had every intention of signing away the right to name my son on the dotted line of the relinquishment papers that would be my testament, my legal and irrevocable declaration that I am not my son's mother. It's always amused me how much of a fuss people have always made when they find out about my decision. They use words like selfless, brave, and noble. For years I argued, tried to make people understand, but eventually I just gave up and let them think whatever they wanted, like I was some kind of saint or a martyr. At the time, these were the facts as I saw them. I was 17, a high school senior, devout. I was on my way to college 1,000 miles from home in the fall. Iggy was due in May. Giving him up for adoption wasn't a bold act of maturity or selfless motherly act in the child's best interest. It was a no-brainer. Keeping him, I knew, trying to raise him on my own would mean this. I would never, ever leave Barstow. And that, as far as I was concerned, was never an option. From the age of 7 until my dorm room keys were firmly in hand, I was single-mindedly bent on one purpose, one focus, one goal in life: to get the hell out of Barstow. The means was simple. I would go to college. There was never a doubt in my or my parents' mind that I was university-bound. I didn't much know or care what I would do with a college education, but to go to college, to hang out in coffee houses, stay up late in dorm rooms having deep conversations about life, the universe, and everything, to go to plays and concerts and art house films. These were my goals, ends unto themselves, my highest priorities. When peeing on the end of a white plastic stick yielded the little pink plus sign that changed my life, there was a moment when all that possibility, art, culture, philosophy, seemed like it had flown from my grasp eternally in a second. But then I did some quick math. The baby, if I could carry it to term, would arrive in May. There'd be plenty of time, my whole summer vacation, to recover and get ready to go away to college. All I'd have to do is stay healthy, put the baby up for adoption, and the whole ugly business would be behind me. I tried to explain this rational, carefully considered plan to my mom when the time came to confess that I'd irresponsibly gotten myself knocked up. She looked at me, not angry or crushingly disappointed, but with pity, and also a little bit like I was an idiot. So I'll put the baby up for adoption, graduate and walk with my class right on schedule, go to college in the fall like we planned, and the next 9 months will just be a minor inconvenience. I evenly, if hurriedly, explained, as though I was delivering a book report I couldn't wait to be done with. A minor inconvenience, Mom repeated. You have no idea what is going to happen to you in the next 9 months. You are going to be emotionally and spiritually bonded to this baby. You will love him more than you can possibly imagine. You will be changed, and you will not be able to give him up. I'd like to be able to say that I respectfully disagreed, but I was 17, and she was my mother. We reached enough of a truce for the necessary steps to be taken. Mom made appointments for me with her OB/GYN, Dr. Rivera. I got and religiously took my prenatal vitamins and became rather expert in the art of holding still for the nurses when they drew my blood for labs, which they took with startling frequency. My youth marked me high risk in the doctor's eyes, and I had enough of a familiarity with Victorian literature to believe that childbirth was as likely as not to kill me, or the baby, or both. I trusted the doctor's medicalization of my pregnancy as a matter of course. And if I had the entire piece here, there would be a lot of paragraphs now about the process of choosing parents for your unborn child, which is all very interesting, but so is what happens next. Though I was diligent in keeping my appointments and heeding the doctor's advice, 2 months before my due date, Dr. Rivera made an alarming proclamation. My risk of premature labor was dangerously high. He prescribed a pill that I would have to take every 4 hours without fail. If that didn't work, I would have to go on 24-hour bed rest. Luckily, the pills worked to his satisfaction. Pain in my ass as it was to take a pill before bed, set an alarm, and wake up in the middle of the night to take another pill, reset my alarm, take another pill upon waking, then get ready for school, where 4 hours later, I took another pill between classes, etc. This went on for about a month before the doctor said I could stop. Iggy was now developed enough to be safely born. When my shoes stopped fitting my swollen feet, I stayed home from school and watched TV and spent my days willing Iggy to be born sooner rather than later, please. He didn't disappoint, and 2 weeks before his due date, shortly after I stopped taking the pills and going to school, we began the difficult, nearly day-long process of laboring to get Iggy out of my womb and into the world. It started with me waking Mom and Dad in the middle of the night, just as I had when I was little and scared by nightmares, creeping down the hall and knocking softly on their bedroom door, as if waking them wasn't my express purpose. It was just after 2 a.m. and my water had broken. They drove me to the hospital and stayed by my side through the night, though in the morning Dad left to go to work. Mom never left my side. We called Debbie and Joe and they drove up from Anaheim. Everything was going smoothly according to plan. In the afternoon I got hungry and grouchy and demanded my clear broth and dry toast. What I really wanted was chicken wings, but I knew these were out of the question. As the contractions got worse, I asked for the painkillers we discussed. Having opted out of Lama's classes full of hopeful couples excited to welcome their babies home, I was plenty agreeable to the doctor's offer of drugs. My lunch, chicken broth and blue Jell-O, no toast, was delivered moments before the nurse arrived to plunge Demerol into my IV. The walls went round and fuzzy, and the hand spooning blue Jell-O into my mouth grew unbelievably heavy. I fell asleep sitting up, my mouth full of Jell-O, and upon waking was really irked to discover they had cleared away my lunch tray before I could finish the broth. Dad returned from work and, having missed the lunch episode, was alarmed to find me blue-lipped and groggy. Until the nurse told him about the Demerol and Jell-O, he thought I might be dying. I was a pretty good sport throughout the day, keeping myself occupied by watching TV. In the evening, I watched Jeopardy and shouted out answers at Alex Trebek, even as I doubled over in the pain of the increasingly powerful contractions. Shortly after that, I didn't object when the doctor suggested we turn the TV off and focus because the baby was really coming now. I grimaced and gritted my teeth and pushed when they told me to. I worried that I wasn't doing it right, but Mom and Dr. Rivera and the nurses were all very encouraging. Then in the middle of one big push that I was sure was going to be the finale, Dr. Rivera said, "Wait, stop, don't push, the umbilical cord is wrapped around his neck." I froze. The world stopped in that moment. My body was urging me to push. It felt like my life depended on it, and with an insane rush of panic, my mind and body grappled, my feeble will standing up to an ocean's force of pure bodily instinct. It was like telling an overfull balloon, "Don't pop." Failure seemed imminent. Suddenly fearing that I might strangle my newborn son before his first breath, all my efforts of the past 8.5 months now appeared to be a laughable exercise in futility. Proof of my insufficiency as a woman, as a mother, and I wondered what I was thinking when I thought that I would be able to pull this off. But a second later, the doctor said, "Okay, push," and I wasn't sure I had even managed to stop pushing, not yet, but with permission to continue, I did, and birthed my son into the world, his cries plain and joyful evidence that I had somehow managed to do the thing correctly. Dr. Rivera honored my request and delivered the baby directly into Debbie and Joe's waiting arms, and from the other side of a curtain that divided the delivery room, I could hear them, and the doctor, and my dad, now Grandpa, cooing over his perfect little fingers and toes. Mom stayed right by my side, though I know that she wanted to hold her first grandson just as badly as I did. We shared a look that nullified all our past disagreements and cried quietly together. There was no need to argue. We were both right. I lost the battle of Quentin, Aloysius, and Ignatius, but Debbie and Joe granted me this favor. They named him Joshua Dominic, choosing his middle name from my list. And though he bore my surname on the birth certificate, 6 months later, when the adoption was final, he took their name. My family joined Debbie and Joe's at their church in Anaheim for Josh's baptism. Witnessing the bond of parents to child as Father Seamus anointed our baby with holy water, making the adoption official in the eyes of God as well as the state of California, I felt a profound relief. The plan worked. My motherly duty was officially discharged. I was off the hook. Those things can seem so simple when you're 18. Thanks to my writing instructor, Ray, and to Denise, and to Amy, and I could probably acknowledge half the people in this room for all the help that you've given me my writing. And Thomas, thank you. Karen, thank you. This is another short prose piece that's also a chapter from the book. Forthcoming, very, very forthcoming. I thought, I have no publications. I feel like such a fraud being here. But you people all came and you're listening, and thank you so much. So, this piece is called Monsters. And I've never read this to anyone. Monsters. In high school, I wrote a short story about a girl who has monsters under her bed. She tells her parents, her teachers, but no one believes her. She cries herself to sleep, scared to death that the monsters will gobble her up in the night. That doesn't happen. Instead, the monsters attack and eat her parents, and the girl is left alone, orphaned, her fate worse than death. My parents had a Time Life book called Mysteries of the Unexplained that had chapters on ghosts, psychics, the Bermuda Triangle, peculiar coincidences, UFO sightings and crop circles and cattle mutilation, and a little bit about every monster reported in history. Your popular monsters like Sasquatch and Yeti and the Loch Ness Monster, and the lesser known but equally terrifying Chupacabra, Jersey Devil, and what looks to be Nessie's cousin, the monster of Lake Champlain. When my dad started actively dying from the brain cancer that killed him, before he lost all lucidity, he asked for each of us, my mom, my brother, his brother, and his sister, to visit him alone, in turn. When it was my time, he started with the usual things. "You are such a joy to be around," he told me, his voice breaking. I wept openly. Then he said something strange. There was a TV in the corner, turned off, and the late afternoon sun cast his reflection upon its blank gray screen. "Halloween must be coming," he said, and I felt like I was being set up for a joke. "What do you mean?" "I see a monster on the TV." I didn't laugh. I told him Halloween was still a month and a half away. He replied, "Oh." I still don't know if that was one of his lucid moments or not. I caught this episode of Nova the other day where they introduced the idea of mathematical monsters. Once upon a time, everything you needed to know about the shape of things was Euclidean. Talk too fast. Then modernism, computers, Benoit Mandelbrot. Fractal geometry doesn't just change the shape of things, but the dimension. Worlds inside of worlds aren't imaginary. They're coded into near everything. Inside the edges are more edges, self-replicating to an infinite degree. They needed computers to tell us how much so. And the thought puzzles that got Mandelbrot to see what hadn't been seen before? Julian sets, mathematical monsters. I'm no mathematician, geometer, so the number-related aspects of Mandelbrot's discoveries lose me utterly. But I know monsters, and then I understand. If you're Euclid, things are symmetrical or they're asymmetrical. For Mandelbrot, symmetry is utterly beside the point. Numbers don't merely behave, they act. They make their own shapes. And yes, there are relationships between math and the natural world, and they are intimate, profound. Is having a monster under your bed any worse than just thinking it's there? Okay. This is a new piece. This is some poetry. Mira Mijita. Part 1, Origin Myth. Mom and Dad were 6 years married before I arrived. 6 years trying. I would have been the middle child, but Mom miscarried. The child who was sorely wanted knows. Mom says, "I had waited for you for so long, and when you finally came, you looked at me like, well, here I am." I was born with my eyes wide open, Mom and Dad always said, looking. Part 2, Moment of Clarity. October 2010. Visiting LA, visiting friends, and seeing a play. An original piece, a world premiere. It rivets me, floors me, jars me. At intermission, I walk out on shaky legs for a breath of West Hollywood air. This woman comes over to bum a smoke from my friend and asks casually, like people in LA must, "So, are you artists?" I cannot answer. My brain might explode under the struggle of computation. No feels like a lie. So does yes. The paradox demands attention. What is a writer who isn't writing? After that girl bummed a smoke and by way of conversation blew my mind, I decided to write a book. A book, I decided, would make it okay to call myself a writer. It worked. And now that I've given writing an inch, it wants my whole life. Part 3, next. Here's what I plan to do next. Immerse myself in a culture of words, find my place in letters, get to the next level if there is such a thing, fully realize the magic I am capable of, develop my inimitable voice to its sonorous fullest, finish my book, figure out what my book is about, represent, holla, establish myself on the scene, fall in love with someone else's writing, figure out what my writing and dance have to do with each other, see and hear more finely, figure out what my writing and prayer have to do with each other, start bridging the border that lives inside of